Well, in case you guys hadn't noticed, Brian Wang has been on the show a lot lately. One thing we have decided, Brian and I, is that Wednesday night is going to be his time. So 7:45 on Wednesday, you can set your clock. This is Brian's time spot. Now, that doesn't mean he's not going to be on it one or more times on the weekend, but Brian, thank you for being such a contributor to the channel.
Great to be here.
All right. So the number one thing we're always going to do on Wednesday night, because Jeff Lutz and I have already talked a little bit about the economy. We've talked a little bit about the action today, earlier tonight. If you didn't already see that, you should of course go back and see what Jeff had to say. But one of the things we don't talk about with Jeff usually is the technical side of what happened to the stock today, where we're sitting now, what's likely to be coming up from a technical perspective. So what are you seeing?
So the 265 level, that's pretty much at, this um, bottom support for the stock. It's pretty strong support. It should um, even a dead cat bounce, which is basically where the stock is falling. It hits it and then bounces up and then it falls through, right? So we should get at least a dead cat bounce. And we're kind of getting it now, up $7 or something like that. Um, and then the height of that could be like 320 and then could go back, test it again. And then it could, again, bounce or it goes through. If it goes through, 250, it's possible. Again, there's several of these other levels there. If it breaks through 250, then we're looking down at, I don't know, 220 or something. It could get pretty ugly. But then below that, there's this really other line that's been going for a while where it should intersect any movement at about like 200, right? So again, a bunch of strong things. For people who look back several years ago, there was a bunch of strong support before where it went from like 400 and then went all the way down to 100. It
Right.
was like smashing through those things, those support levels like crazy. I think we're in a different time where it's more similar to 2019 to 2020, where we went from $15, all split adjusted, so it was like 225, whatever.
Right.
Anyway, from $15 to 60, and that was like February 21st when it got to 60. And then it dropped in a month to March 21st to 28. So roughly mapping that pattern, 488 down to 235 or something like that is the size of that other move.
I see.
But then it went to 275. So nearly 10x, right? Brief pauses along the way over a year,
Right.
right? And what was doing that? That was Model 3 was ramped. China was doing production. We got Model Y just coming out. So that was us getting to the 500,000 cars and then, you know, wonderful things happening, right? So that was happening that year, right? This time we got FSD, we got the new car coming, robotaxi. If people don't believe it, it's because back then they didn't believe China would ramp. They didn't believe Model Y would ramp. All those things they didn't believe. And then it happened. Similarly here, they don't believe it. They're even ignoring FSD being in China. FSD
Right.
being in China, that could be $1 billion right there of nearly pure profit. That could help increase sales, 100,000, 200,000. Model Y already kind of ramped. The number for people who don't know was 12,400 cars registered in China last week, in February, end of February, beginning of March 2nd. And same week last year, it was 12,500, right? Although we're coming off of, a 30,000 February, um, which, is down like from 70,000 or 68,000 from the prior year. So that ramp thing did cost us 30,000 some cars, 40,000 some cars. But the week to week, we're kind of there, right? And if our March starts showing like 15,000, 18,000 registrations, that shows, hey, we totally did it.
Mhm.
And there's the justification that Brad Ferguson, some other people are saying that the new model could have even better sales than the old Model Y, right? Which
I
we'd
would
start
think.
seeing over these next three weeks, leading up to the April 2nd number, right? So the potential for good news there, that we don't catch up for the whole quarter, but we could have a really good month that
Right.
would show that we're fully ramped. Which you talked to Jeff Lutz. I believe that that this the ramping of the Model Y will blend into the release of the new model car.
Okay.
We'll discuss that in more detail, but you may want to comment about my technical analysis there.
Yeah, well, your technical analysis certainly matches mine because I don't have any ability to do technical analysis. No, as you know, I think I've said on the show many, many times, I do kind of look at these support levels, but they're not based on move 50-day or 100-day moving averages. They're just based on the psychology of that's where it bounced last time,
Right.
or that's where it maxed out last time.
Mhm.
And those tend to be kind of close to the same as some of these. So I'm a great believer that the technical is true because of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
So if 50,000 people believe it's going to happen and they make their bets based on it happening at that level, then it happens. I mean, it's like,
Right.
it's pretty, it's kind of, I'm smart enough to figure that part out. I'm just not smart enough to figure out all those
But the thing is, like, there's also like,
handles and all this
yeah,
stuff, Brian,
yeah. But the thing is, there's so much of the story, they can justify this number, that number, this number, that number, and then oh, it's like it turned. So that one list of 20 things is where it turned on, right?
Right, right.
But you get to these more firm, hard numbers kind of things, and it's like, okay, it's kind of a trend, it's kind of a long-term thing, and yeah, so uh,
Yes, what I'm a believer in, and what we talk about on this channel a lot is the macros, which nobody else seems to want to talk about. If the macro of the market is risk on, that's going to have a big impact on the price of the stock. I don't care what the technicals are doing.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this week we've had on and off. I mean, we're right now the stock market is turning on and off the risk on risk off button.
right,
The VIX went up to 25. Now it's back down to 21 and change. Last week it was a 16, 15.
yeah.
So we've got chaos right now caused by the president of the United States, and I'm loving every minute of it because I think it's what we need right now. We need the chaos, and I talked about that earlier on my show this morning.
Mhm.
So you may or may not agree with me. Let me know in the comments below whether the chaos is a good thing. What do you think, Brian? Do you think the chaos is going to end? Do you think the chaos is something that he's doing on purpose in order to create a better negotiating situation?
So he's doing a lot of things all at once. So when you say chaos to create negotiation, it depends if you're referring to Ukraine, if you're referring to Canada-Mexico tariff. It's like he's got 10 different, 20 different things going on at the same time,
Right.
right? And it does all weave together. So people who say that it's it's random, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's just throwing stuff around. I see a clear he's doing this to set up this next thing, right? It's required actions,
Right.
right? And in terms of like how much you do, the plan laid out by the Heritage Foundation or like that, which he's not totally following, but like
Right.
it's part of the playbook. They have used that information to do hiring people, doing stuff. That they wanted to do the shock therapy to the geopolitics and to the U.S. economy over 6 months. It was like a 180 plan where they want to do it. So now we're like 35 days or whatever into it. There's still 100 some 50 days to go, but they would again want to front load these things. So the in terms of the chaos, the actions on Ukraine are actually relatively simple, right? And when he said that Ukraine, Zelensky, you have no cards, is basically saying that this is the facts on the ground. That people say, oh, he shouldn't have given away the NATO thing, shouldn't have given this or that. It's like the the box around which this could be solved is not uh like everything's possible, Russia's gonna leave, all this kind of stuff. That was never there. The people who are thinking that that was possible are not looking at it. It's not like a master negotiator can come in and say, this is not a junk car with, with rust going all the way through it, right? I'm going to tell you, hey, that's a Porsche or something like that, and you should, or Ferrari, you should pay me $250,000. They're like, no, that's a rust bucket. It's $1,000, right? So there's a range of reality.
Right.
So
Right.
so the range of reality is that 20% of Ukraine has been lost. Like 8% was already gone before Trump came in the first time. 2014, they took Crimea and then they took Donbass. That happened in like super fast.
Right.
They took that and then they were fighting ever since, right? At a about 1/10, 1/20th the level that they did in 2022, right? So that's you know there's the facts on the ground. And the other facts on the ground, they've been fighting for 3 years, 1.5 million lives lost, or 1.5 million deaths and wounded on
Right.
both sides, 800,000 on one side, 700,000 on the other. So a lot of killing, and a lot of wounded stuff, like 200,000, 300,000 people. So that 5,000, 10,000 per week that we're losing, right? So, and then if you look at the map of the fighting, you'll see that there's three nearly encircled cities, right? So if people look at the war, they have the big movements, and then for the last year and a half, not much, but the not much was still like, I don't know, 2,000 square miles or 1,000 square miles that Russia took,
Hmm.
right? Other than, Ukraine crossing the border and grabbing a little chunk of Russia, tiny little chunk of it, inside Ukraine, they lost those territories, right? And then, so these three cities about to be lost because they previously have taken other cities that they fought over a long time and they ground them forward and they took them. So that same thing is happening similar to last year. So that's basically then Ukraine with everything that blank check from the United States, blank check from Europe. Here's everything we got, and then you're still losing,
Yeah.
right? It's not a fast loss, but it's still losing, right? And then now because Ukraine and Europe, Europe's involved too, where there's forces that want a forever war,
Yeah.
right? So they want a forever war, and then they don't like the fact that it's not going to be a forever war. And then Trump is saying, if we're going to have peace, it's not going to be a forever war, right? So when he says that, that means that he will cut off the weapons and stuff because he say, I'm going to stop him from, I'm not going to be in there. You will probably lose in fairly short order when I step away,
Right.
right? And so thus he said, okay, no more weapons
Right.
being sent. Stuff that was in Poland is not being sent, so they're not sending additional weapons. They're also looking at, or they already did that, the intelligence from satellites and stuff is kind of paused. It's like we're passing it through UK or France or whatever like that. So they're still getting the information, right? But now there's what? We added a 15, 10-minute delay of like of we're playing a game of telephone. It's like I'm giving it to you, you can give it to him, and then but instead of me being it directly. That still is a few minute delay, right? So it's not militarily operationally having an impact there on that part of it, but it's not a few minutes delay. Sometimes it matters, but and then the other thing would be it's a warning shot saying, "Hey, I can cut you off completely. I can cut you off completely, and then my better intelligence, you'll only have UK intelligence, which is only 1/10 as good as mine, right? So that's on that, and the cutting off the weapons is basically HIMARS and shelling. There's a bunch of lists. There's a Sky News Australia thing when they went through the list of all the equipment, stuff like that. So a bunch of the equipment is being destroyed all the time. So if I don't give you more, what you got is being destroyed. And then the expendables, like the shells, the missiles, and all that kind of stuff, you use that up, and then you're done. And then the UK and France are still giving them stuff. So it's like, well, what can they give them? They can say, okay, I have my own supplies. I didn't give you that before because the US was giving it, and I would want to keep some for myself, right? But now I'm saying, okay, the US stepping away, I got to hurry up and give you. I'm going to go lower. I want to have 100 of these. I'm going down to 60, right? I'll give you 40 that I really want to keep for myself, but I'm going to give it to you for now, right? Most of that is not stuff that UK and France make themselves
Right.
because they don't make most of their own gear. The big weapon makers are the US companies, right? France makes their Mirage. France has a few more independent things that they make their own, but they don't have that much. HIMARS, none of them make HIMARS, which is the special, super accurate missile hitting stuff behind, right? They don't make that. So they have their own supply of HIMARS, which they bought from the United States.
Right.
So it's like, here, I bought this. I'm not gonna use it right now. You can have it, right? But they don't have that much,
Right.
right? So basically, they could extend. So basically, the pinch on weapons and other stuff starts hitting already now. Morale, information flow.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
I know I don't have as much. I expect as much. I need to start rationing this because I'm not gonna be able to use as much. I need to start thinking differently about how I use things, and that impacts stuff. And then also Russia knowing, hey, you guys have lower supplies. We can do this and we can start stressing you. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, it can start biting. It start affecting things a lot, right? And so then it could, in 2 months, it could be like, they could start being forced out of things. Like the thing that they're surrounded at. They could have held it for 6 months and now they hold it for two, right? It's not totally precise that way, but it starts to get that direction, right? And then the UK and France cannot come in, even if they, boots on the ground, other stuff like that. It's like it just.
Not,
I can
no.
go in detail about that, but it doesn't work. I don't want to go, too much. We already talked about it.
So then I don't know what to believe today, but it appeared that Zelensky backed off again. It's like the headline I read said something about now he doesn't want to negotiate with Russia.
Yeah,
Yesterday, oh yeah, Trump, you handle it, I'll sign the thing, and then you go take care of it. Well, that'd be, I'm not sure Zelensky needs to be in the room. I'm sure Trump and Putin could put the deal together.
yeah.
But what's with Zelensky? Is he nuts, or is he just getting bombarded by people telling him what they think he ought to do, and he doesn't know which way to turn? What do you think's going on?
Yeah, so I think that he's getting different important people, like I think
President of Germany or
yeah, Starmer of England,
England?
that kind of stuff, where there's like when he first came in and made the thing on Friday, like 2 days before or something like that, he signed a deal with the UK saying that he would give them the minerals, that he would get the guarantee from them for a few $1 billion. So various, nations and companies and the Democrats are telling him, you know, we have your back on whatever, right? But if he actually looked at it in terms of like, you know, I'm going to get cut, no matter what any of them say, I will get cut off from these critical things, right? Then he would recognize, hey, I only got uh, two, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, or whatever before things go really going south. If he was listening to certain people who actually were in tune with that, I'm sure there are all over Ukraine in the military who would know and could say, hey, this is not going to go right. We have to make the deal. But then he's choosing to purposely or um, whatever ignore the reality of where they're at. Um, but so the fact that he's willing to lie to himself or other have lie to him is what's going this thing. But there, the situation that I see is that the loss is inevitable.
Right,
It was a slow loss that U.S. is not willing to keep paying for,
right.
and 70% of the United States population in
That's what,
polls say that hey, we don't want to keep paying for this thing, right? So not just Trump saying it, it's just like hey, the U.S. Population has turned against it, and then there's no other configuration where they can keep going in the war without the United States. So it has to end, and it will end soon, right? So that's a economically a good thing, right?
yeah, yeah,
Inflation goes down, oil prices go down.
right.
A bunch of economic good things happen when that does. But uh, it's like some of the tariff things, where it's like, oh, it gets slapped down for 2 days and something like that. It's again because Mexico and Canada can't do anything about it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, but then they politically want to grandstand and make a show for political reasons there, even when they end up giving up, right? That, but again, the economic reality of when the situation comes in, it's like, okay, yeah, we're losing. It's like, you know, I'm a, a 99-pound weakling going up against Mike Tyson in his prime, right? I'm going to get wrecked. The fact that I'm going out there and getting in the ring and running around before I get tagged or taking one shot by trip is like irrelevant to the fact that I'm losing. That I'm showing my courage by running around, but it's like the outcome is clear. Yeah.
Well, let's turn to Tesla then.
Mhm.
And you have
Mhm.
a theory about the Model Q, Model 2.5, whatever we're going to keep not knowing what to call it. Maybe someday Tesla will tell us what to call it.
Yeah.
But you have a theory about it coming soon.
Right, right. So we have the announcement that Tesla's giving a 0% interest rate, I think 0% down on Model 3s, right? So Model 3 is the cheapest, lowest price car that Tesla currently has. So about like $40,000. So, uh, and then cheaper, like 35,000 in China, something like that. So if you come out with a new lower price car, you come out a bit higher because you're not gonna go to the full, like, if you get down 25,000, you wouldn't do it right away.
Right.
So you maybe come out, say 32,000, which with a $17,000 discount would be $25,000,
Right.
right? So you come up with that, but that would hurt sales of your lowest price Model 3, right? So, and when we came out with the refreshed Model Y, they did stuff incentives to get rid of as many of the old Model Ys in inventory as they could.
Mhm.
Same playbook here. Get rid of the ones of the uh, has fewer of the Model 3s around. I'm still going to be making and selling them, but I could anticipate 20% drop in sales, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I need to introduce a new model because I'll sell, 40%, eventually, double, triple how many I sell the Model 3, right? So that move, I think, is a clock tick of, hey, 4 to 6 weeks from the release of the new car. And because of that, we're clearing out inventory because
Right.
when clearing inventory in the Model Y, same deal. So I think that is a action reveal that we're going to raise that. Plus, already mentioned the near full ramp in China of the Model Y,
Right.
right? So I view this as Model Y, new Model Y ramps, new Model 3, all suppliers get going on those parts and stuff. And then similar parts on the new car, we would then start ramping suppliers and Tesla into both so that, we get to, a million Model Ys, 500,000 Model 3s, and then we add on 200,000, 500,000, a million of the new car
Mm.
into next year. Then we say, okay, now we're going to start ramping Cybercab. And then we would, by the end of next year, have 2 million Cybercab, right? So a million or more of the middle car, 2 million Cybercab, along with the 1.8, 2 million of the other 3 and Y.
What is your theory with regard to the fully unboxed, what we used to call the Gen 3 vehicle,
Mhm.
which we now call the Gen 2.5 because it's not going to be fully unboxed?
Mhm.
Will there ever be a fully unboxed version of that? Will it be something completely different? In other words, another new model. I mean, do you have any theory on that? I mean, I know we don't know. It'd be 100% speculation, but what do you think happens to the old unboxed Model 3?
I think that um, unboxed, I know a Model 3, like you do your unboxed on
Not Model 3. I'm sorry, Gen 3.
Cybercab.
Gen
What?
3. The Gen 3, not Model 3.
Yeah.
What is the Gen 3? Will there ever even be a fully unboxed uh, car with a steering wheel in it?
I would say yes. There would still be that fully unboxed the modular construction vehicle and having a steering wheel in it, I think that can still happen. The there is it, I'm not in terms of like there's a chance that doesn't happen, right? Where you have a partially unboxed process and you use that now, and then next year might be the last time that we have steering wheel cars that they would want to transition off of that. But
So I
it's just
guess
like we
we
kept the
put
S
it,
and X around for a long time, so you could keep the 3 and Y around with the steering wheel for a long time before you end up taking it out. Cybercab, the pure 2C Cybercab would have no steering wheel. Yeah.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, this has always been my real question with regard to the autonomous driving and the cyber cabs and whatnot, is to where does it become, as Elon has said many times before, if you're not innovating enough to actually take your own products out, then you're not innovating enough.
Right.
So there's a point at which a car with a steering wheel makes no sense.
Mhm.
And so maybe there's a point at which the Model 3 no longer makes sense with a steering wheel, and the unboxed is kind of a unboxed Model 3 that doesn't have a steering wheel.
Right. Right. I think that
Technically,
technologically, we could, by middle of next year, end of next year, robotaxi would be so good. Like one we already have, we'll have it unsupervised in June of this year, right?
right.
But by next year, it could be 10 times, 100 times better or something like that, right?
Mhm.
So then it would technically, safety wise, you know, you wouldn't need it, right? But the legacy models of the 3 and Y with steering wheel, the consumer still wanting that, right? Many people who still want to
Right,
drive,
right.
right, will still want the steering wheel, right? So the Cybercab and the new vehicle could say, okay, we give some the new vehicle starting with the steering wheel now, but by next year we say, okay, that's gone in the 4-seat version, the 2-seat version of Cybercab, right? So, but then Cybertruck, 3Y, SX, um, how long do those they could start making versions without it, right? But it's also the regular human buyers where they, how much are they not willing to give it up,
Yeah.
even though it's safer, even though it's better. But I could see um, if people remember Steve Jobs, he would
Takes
rem
out.
take stuff out. He would say, "Okay, I know you still want this thing and still demand. I'm going to take it out anyway." Right? I'm going to take out, printer connections. I'm going to take out this. I'm going to take out that, and then you get to the stripped down thing.
Right.
Even more so, I could see that happening for Tesla in the future. So,
All right. So we had a major announcement tonight before the end of trading, and the stocks seemed to respond to it because everything else was going a little down at the end of the day, and Tesla shot up at the end of the day. But then it didn't carry through into the after hours. So I'm not sure that anybody really that was trading the stock was paying any attention to this major announcement. But we have a very large factory. Well, not as large as some of the other factories, but a pretty good sized factory going in to, is it Tracy? Not Tracy, Tracy, Texas?
no, no, it's so let me pull it up
Uh,
here.
Tracy.
It is
Near Houston.
right, right. Okay, so here it is. It's Waller County. It's Empire West. It's near Katy,
80. Yeah, it was
Katy,
close. It was
Texas.
close. It was
6
close.
miles from there, and it's actually in Brookshire, uh, or actually call it Patterson, Texas.
Patterson.
So
Okay.
Brookshire, Patterson, Texas is where it is. So if you're seeing my Google Maps,
Yep.
yeah, so it's on Empire Boulevard here, Empire West Business Park. So these small little towns or whatever it is, where it's at, it's called Patterson, Texas, here on Google Maps. Other people in articles call it like I think Brookshire, and then they sometimes refer to it as near Katy, but it's 36 miles from Houston.
Okay.
So yeah,
And so it's the one with the little red dot on it?
right. The one with red dot, this building here,
Okay.
and then so that the parking around it, and then there's the white building, and then to the right of it is a bunch of land where you could stick another 600,000 square foot building,
Okay.
right? So this building is, according to the various reports, 1.03 million square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just which is larger than the building at and
Shanghai and Larsa Lathrop. So I have did the analysis back in the day where I noticed the aerial photos of Shanghai and found that it was about 880,000 square feet, 887,000 square feet, and that's pretty much double the 440,000 square feet of Lathrop.
Lathrop, right. Now, the thing about Lathrop that you and I, as we've made these comparisons before, the thing that I all of a sudden realized is that when Bradford went over to Lathrop, he realized there was all these other buildings around the Lathrop facility.
Mhm.
Some of them were being used to store these containers, because a lot of times they couldn't ship them
Mhm.
until they had either a barge load or maybe it was a ship load, whatever, or
Mhm.
maybe it just wasn't ready at the other end.
Yeah.
And so they had to store them. So one building apparently was just used for storage.
Mhm.
Maybe some other buildings that were being used for componentry.
Mhm.
Do you think that that's part of why they need more space in Shanghai and they got those other two outbuildings?
Right. So um, the Lathrop building was, they took over a Target distribution center. So it wasn't as customized, and they probably didn't know as much about how to customize it
Right.
as they wanted. And then Shanghai has the two other buildings. Let me go back to Shanghai. Um, so there is this main building, there's a small building down here
Yep.
at the base, which looks like a small square, right?
Yep.
So if this is 800 square feet, this is probably like, 100,000 square feet. And then they can make a long building beside this square building that would be for some unknown purpose, which could be for the distribution, shipping, storing before we do something else
Right.
kind of
Right.
purpose, right?
Right.
Which um, Lathrop probably has those things too, or they're doing it outside or something like that. So we don't know how much usable space is inside Lathrop, is the full 440 or not, or whether you need to have these kind of one or two other buildings
Right.
for other purposes.
Right.
Right. Um,
So we have this new building going in South Texas. You are guessing, I'm guessing along with you that this is at least by capacity, maybe again double the Lathrop facility. So we could between the three, if it turns out that Shanghai can make 20,000 packs a year, and then Texas can make 20,000, we could be up to 50,000 of these packs a year. They're roughly $1 million a piece. So we could be looking at 50 billion in sales when all three are fully ramped. Is that squaring with what you're thinking?
so if it's 160,000 square feet,
I
sorry,
mean, a million,
1.6
millions.
million, 1.6 million square feet of usable space, and that's double the usable space in
Shanghai.
Shanghai. So then if it's 40 gigawatts in Lathrop, 80 gigawatts in Shanghai, and then 160 gigawatts here, then it's 10,000 packs, 20,000 packs, 40,000 packs. So then
No, that's
total.
assuming they develop the other lot.
Right, right. I'm assuming they develop the other lot. Right. So then that would be 70,000. If you're not developing the other lot, then it's 25,000 or
20, 20, 40, and 40.
yeah,
No, 10,
uh
10, 20, and 20.
yeah, 10, 20, and not 20. I would say it'd be like 25 or 30.
Okay, okay.
Right. So it'd be still up from the size of Shanghai, right?
All right. So we've got this facility going in. It was announced. It got absolutely no pop on the stock. Even now, even hours later in the after hours, at least last time I checked. Let me just go ahead and check again just to see what's going on. We have got no pop. It's down 65 cents in
Mhm.
the after hours. So it's odd. This is the equivalent of like
A
a
Texas Austin thing, appearing out of nowhere. Yeah.
it's like adding 600,000 cars a year or something,
Yeah.
potentially, and it's getting no pop, and it's a more probably a more uh, and easier to plot profit.
Hmm.
It is not reliant on good economic times. It'll be, sales will be year round. It's not seasonal. I mean, it's got all kinds of benefits to it, but it's not sexy. And so, all right, so we'll see whether the pop comes. The other side of it is Elon said in the last call, he says, we're battery constrained.
Hmm.
Well, wait a minute. He's battery constrained, but he's building a brand new. Now, maybe he had that in his mind already. Oh, we're going to add, another 20,000 or so megapacks down in wherever in Texas or someplace. Maybe they just decided on this location, but maybe he was counting that in terms of being battery constrained. Or what do you think? Oh, and now we add to it all these tariffs that are probably going to make it almost impossible to import batteries, at least from China.
Hmm. Right.
Where are we
So,
at with batteries?
in the last call, he discussed the third Megapack factory.
He
He
did, yeah.
said third Megapack factory. He said battery constrained, third Megapack factory. So now we don't have to say like he didn't like if this rumor is true, right? Then the and the various announcements, like Katie, the city there, said that you know the $180 million investment, the equipment, and they said it was for mega packs, right? So there's city governments and stuff, there's industrial park people saying this is what's there,
Right, right.
right? So and prior to that, the news from like 2023, 2024 is that this is a 1 million square foot Tesla warehouse, right?
Okay. Oh, okay.
Right. But then now we're saying no, it's not a warehouse, it's a Megapack factory, right? But the building has been there. It's like that thing is built. It's not like the
Right,
Shanghai one where it's like they're
right,
still building the building.
right.
That building is done. The
Okay.
building has been done for a while. It was built to spec by the realtor, whatever real estate company, right? So the building's been there. If Tesla wanted to put in Megapack equipment, that equipment could already be in the building,
Okay.
right? Because the building's been there
Yeah,
for
yeah,
months.
yeah. We didn't have any idea about Lathrop until
Right,
like weeks before they started making product.
right, right. So just like there, we didn't know about that. Um, so Lathrop, they announced it. It's not they announced it ahead of time and said, look at us build and install crap into Lathrop. It's
Yeah,
like here's Lathrop, and now we're gonna start making megapacks out of it. And then this thing is the building that's done. They can start making megapacks out of it like tomorrow,
you're right.
right?
Right.
Like we don't know, right? But the equipment's all there. So if I was to
Might be all there. We don't know.
might be all there, right? In terms of my deduction about it, right? Then Shanghai factory got done, like say December,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Right in
And then they
December.
had February they had here's the first mega pack out of Shanghai.
Right.
So this building's done. So then in
Move
two
on.
months, or even if it was 1 month, they didn't tell us. In 1 month, they could start doing it. It's pretty some of the getting equipment done. There's nothing different about it because a finished building in China, a finished building in the United States, same thing. It's just installing the other equipment, which is all under Tesla's control.
Right.
So this could immediately start producing 20 gigawatt hours per year, 40 gigawatt, the scaling they seem to like doing like 20
Yeah.
gigawatts at a time,
Yeah.
right? So they could start producing out of that for us. Because like for them, they've been paying for the building for a while, leasing it and doing stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
The equipment, so there's no reason for them to, if they have the demand,
Yeah. Yeah. And they
they
have
just
the
start,
batteries.
and they have batteries, then they start making it,
Yeah.
right? So that means that Q2, we could see, a 25, a 30 gigawatt hour number. Well, there's the delay you have to like install and do stuff. But in terms of like production out, if you were counting production out,
Q3. Let's make it Q3.
yeah,
Q3.
Q3.
Start saying.
Yeah, right. But production this year.
Yeah, yeah. But I just wonder where the batteries are going to come from. Do you think that this means that Elon has seen in the 4680s in Austin that they're ready to go, that it's popping?
Um, I think Jordan Geese, limiting factor, had talked about, being able, different sources, LG, this and that, all the contracts, that there was, you know, I forget the number, it was like another 60 gigawatts of batteries. But, like they'll need like 10, 20 gigawatts per factory. Like in Shanghai, they need 20 gigawatts, they'll need 20 gigawatts here, 40. So it's a substantial amount of batteries. New
Right,
car, um,
right.
could be a new car model could be another 10 gigawatt hours, so that's a substantial ramp up. But again, it's like they're making the buildings. It's not like, hey, I'm gonna need 20 gigawatt hours in Q3 or 20 gigawatt hours in Q2, right? It's like they knew that that was the
Right,
case, right?
right.
So when they had the meeting last quarter of like, hey, we're short batteries, I think that would be like in the Q4 ramp, or
Mhm.
it's not like only 3 months away, 6 months away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like, I think it would have to be a next year thing, right? It's like, hey, we're gonna now everything's gonna ramp up. We're gonna do really well with robotaxi. We're gonna do well with Cybercab, the
Mhm.
new cars. Like the new car thing, they've been planning for
Sure.
forever. So they would say, okay, we have to get this amount of batteries, for May, June, Q3, right?
So my 2026 story, which I started, I think, March of 2023, saying, look, it's going to be 2026.
Hmm.
It's all going to come together in 2026.
Hmm.
We just added another 20 billion in sales
Right.
for 2026 on top of everything else that we've been talking about, because almost certainly by 2026, Shanghai at 20 billion and this one at 20 or so billion will be up ramped shipping and realizing revenue.
Right.
So I don't know, nothing going to happen in 2026. Something about semi trucks, something
Mhm.
about all kinds of, and this may not be the last Megapack factory. I would not be at all surprised. Now, uh, Elon and Europe may not be getting along even less now than they were a few weeks ago, but these things blow over. Besides, as somebody pointed out the other day, and you probably maybe even helped me out on this a little bit, Europe is not all homogeneously thinking. Oh, Hungary is a completely different place. Turkey is a completely different place. Turns out Poland has the largest army in Europe, right? Except for
Um,
except for
Turkey,
Ukraine.
Russia, Russian and
Oh yeah, if you
Turkey.
count Russia, if you count Russia.
Turkey's got a pretty big army.
But I
Um,
think I think I think Poland might have the biggest.
I'd have to look at that numbers.
I mean, after the Ukraine, after Ukraine. Not
Like I
counting
said, I
Russia.
think Turkey might be bigger. I have to
Okay,
look at the
Turkey
numbers.
might
I'm
be
pretty
bigger.
sure Turkey's bigger
Yeah, so
than.
it's not, but it's not France, it's not Germany, it's not England.
Right, right, right. Yeah,
It's not
like
the
we're talking.
powerhouses of Europe.
Yeah, yeah. It's shocking how low uh, Germany, France, and UK have wound down their armies, like a
Right,
lot. They're
right.
they're tiny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
in terms of also not just the number of soldiers, but the number of gear.
Yeah, their gear too. Yeah, their equipment. I
Yeah.
was reading today that Germany can't ship any stuff to Ukraine because they don't even have enough in their stockpile. If they had to participate in a war, they wouldn't be able to. They're down to the bare minimums.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like I think Turkey has the most soldiers and tanks.
Okay.
Poland number two, pretty
Mhm.
close, and then Greece actually has third most tanks. The reason being, Greece is worried about Turkey attacking them.
I see. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. So it's really an interesting shift. It's fascinating to watch these shifts of the world in terms of, you look back and you go, if you look back in history and you're saying, well, there was a time when Portugal was a major big deal. There was a time when Spain was, sending out armadas and taking over the Western Hemisphere. There was a time when the Dutch were kind of the kingpins of Europe.
Mm.
And yet in our lifetime, kind of, we've always thought the Brits, the Germans, the Italians, the French, not necessarily in that order, but that they were kind of the, the movers and shakers, but it's
Mhm.
kind of changing.
Right, right. Um, Kind of just segue there that I'm not quite sure about. So we were talking about the
Yeah, what were we
batteries, the batteries in the cars, right? And the how, where do they get the batteries and that kind of
right.
thing. So um, and they said there was Jordan Gacy saying, okay, this LG factory, there's the CATL thing that they bought the equipment from, they're doing that stuff, and they are ramping 4680s. Um, and then they're going to make LFP 4680s, actually probably starting in the second half of this year,
Oh,
and then scaling next year, right?
okay.
So they will have a lot of batteries next year, and particularly for the iron LFP batteries, because iron LFP can scale a lot better than the nickel. And then supposedly they've solved, the powder cathode problem, which was a big thing because they had to, um, in their dry process, get some parts from a Chinese maker in order to like finish their batteries. So they like 90% of it, then the 10% they needed to
Mm.
get from a Chinese maker. And that part that they had to get, they had to like get it and install it in like 2 weeks or something like that. It was like it's something that would kind of decay until they got in because of chemistry or something like that. So if they have got it where they can do all of that completely dry, fixed out, and have their batteries perfected. So by getting up to like 15, 20 gigawatts, that's enough for a full line. So then you should be able to ramp up those other lines. Like I got 20, but then boom, I ramp up the other 4 lines, other 7 lines, and I could then get to 200 gigawatt hours in a hurry, right?
And if you have two,
But
and if they were making 200 gigawatt hours of those 4680s, they would not be battery constrained anymore. They could
well,
they
if I
could
need
build a
160
lot of
gigawatt
stuff.
hours, 160 gigawatt hours for the third factory, 80 for Shanghai, then I need 280 gigawatt hours fully ramped 3 factories, right? And that could be by the end of next year. And then I go cars to say 4 million cars, 50, so that's like 200 gigawatt hours of that, right? Plus the battery hungry semis, 50,000 of
Right,
those, that's 50
right.
gigawatt hours there, right? So then I'm looking at like 600, 700 gigawatt hours of batteries versus like I think maybe 150 now, right? So I go
Yeah,
like 4 or 5 times.
right.
That is
A
a
lot of
substantial,
batteries.
a lot of batteries, right? And scaling up and getting like 40 or 80 from CATL, like you have to have like major deals to get that extra 200, 400, which goes to the battery problem is next year when they fully
Not this
scale these
year.
things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
That they
That's
need.
so that's why you think he was not talking about now. He was talking about if we're going to do all these things, it's going to really get a little skinny.
Right, right, right. It's like way beyond, what we can get from CATL, from LG, and blah blah blah. That one, whatever they tapped everything that's lying around for this year, right? And then next year, the level of scaling that they're doing, right, is another like 400 gigawatt hours of batteries. It's like a lot of stuff. And then that trend be even bigger the year after, right? So their ramp up is getting shockingly huge. It's like everything that people were talking about before is all happening, right? So
So if all that comes true and they don't change the IRA bill with regard to battery production in the United States and pack production in the United States, Tesla will just basically own the United States because the bill will be so high for all those batteries.
there's a lot of other stuff happening, a lot of AI stuff happening, so yes, all this is all wonderful, but the going up 4 times in batteries, going up, what it'd be closing in on 8 times or 6 times as much, 7 times as much, in terms of like from a finished 40 gigawatt hour laser factory to 280 gigawatts of energy. You went up 7 times, maybe in like 24 months, right? 30 months, something like that, right? It's a huge scale up on the energy side. and just keeping going because they're going to go up to a terawatt. Elon's talking about terawatt
Yeah.
there, right? Which at the pace of like popping up a 160 gigawatt hour factory once a year would be, like in another 3 years,
Yeah.
or 4 years, right?
I got to go back and get my spreadsheets out again because I
Yeah,
predicted all this. I was just early again.
right, right,
I had it
right,
all ramped. I took Elon at his word and I said, well, then you need to build two this year and two this year and two this year, and
right,
those ramp up and then you'll get there. And now
right,
all of a sudden it's happening again.
right. But the fact that the cars and the batteries will be happening and the energy will be happening
Right.
will still be a smaller story than robotaxi,
Right. And Optimus.
robotruck, Tesla bot, and general AI, because people keep forgetting about Dojo 2 coming in later this year. Dojo 2, which should be competitive with the NVIDIA B200.
Right.
And then Dojo 3, you know, people are assuming that um, Tesla and Elon can't catch up with NVIDIA. Oh yeah, that can't happen. NVIDIA is led by Jensen Huang and blah blah blah. So then that they would have a Dojo 3. You're assuming the Dojo 3 is going to be worse than the Rubin. I don't know. I don't know. Is that a good
Right.
call? Right? And then they're going to put in 1 million chips by the end of this year,
Memphis.
still
Yeah.
mostly NVIDIA, into their XAI factory.
Right.
Right? And again, this is just at the end of this year.
Yeah.
That is going to they're going to figure out how to do the energy to make something 3 times bigger and then the year after,
Yeah.
maybe, or worst case, not 2020, 26, but 2027, a factory 3 times bigger. And then they'll have one set up 10 times bigger, 10 million chips by
10 million.
2028. 10 million chips by 2028.
Okay, you're speculating now. Elon hasn't said that yet.
He has not said that yet, but I run the numbers and I say that, in order to get the AI where you want
I
it,
see. Okay. Okay.
you need to do this thing,
I see.
right? So, yes, I have this overall thing that
10 billion chips.
that super intelligence is going to happen, and it's going to happen next year,
Okay.
right? So again, it's not like um, one just by building the 1 million chip facility
Yes.
with NVIDIA B200 and Dojo 2 chips.
Right.
This will have 50 times as much compute
Right.
as Grok 3,
Right.
right? Which has 15 times more compute than Grok 2, which came out in August.
Yeah.
Right. So August last year to the end of this year will be like 16 months. 16 months, and you went up 750 times in your compute. Right? So you'll think, oh, well, that fit, then we stall out, we can't build more. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we're going to build more.
Yeah.
Right? It's not going to stop. One is like all of the, like Meta, Google, Microsoft, they spent $350 billion this year on AI and AI development, right?
Right.
They still have $350 billion of free cash flow, extra
After-
cash
after
after they
that.
did the build, after they still did that. So they use all that up, that's $700 billion for next year. So then they double next year, right? And who's not me saying that? That's Brad Gerstner, who runs the $20 billion Altimeter Capital Fund, Bill Gurley, who runs the multi-billion-dollar fund, talking to Dylan Patel, semi-analyst, like the top, data center chip analyst guy, saying, hey, they're going to use all their free cash flow.
Mm.
And then they're going to tap the sovereign wealth funds,
Mm.
right? No stopping. It's all going, all this money, more chips, right? So NVIDIA is going to go, not stock advice, but, going to go up like to 400 to 500, something like that. TSMC can go up, and Tesla's going to be riding this and doing that too, potentially making a lot of chips, not just for the training side,
Yeah.
but also for the inference side, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as big as we're talking about, 10 times more energy, more cars, FSD working stuff, the AI story of super intelligent, smarter than human thing,
Right.
shoving that inside of a Tesla bot,
Right.
it'd be like, and suddenly, in 2027, we have 1 million Tesla bots.
Right.
all with an IQ of 300, right? And then they're working factories and do stuff like the crazy world thing of like it it's like it's why the 500 gigawatts of energy storage and the fact we're making 100,000 megapacks is like I don't even care
Yeah.
because I have a million Tesla bots, right? And then the year after that, 10 million or 20 million, something like that, right? And that the Grok AI thing, the brains, is the story. So, um, when do we know if I'm right about that? So, one, this year, Grok 4,
Mhm.
built with 12 times the compute, 11 times the compute, and trained with that, should come out August, September.
Okay.
If that is totally kicking butt, then we know something. And then you watch next year by about like this time, March, April, the um, the Grok 5
Okay.
trained on the 1 million chips, right?
Right.
If those things are like, holy smoke, this is super intelligent and blah, 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 there'll be some debate. Like, as smart as human, not smart as human. There'll be some debate because it also depends on the different areas, right? But then the announcement of, you know, like Meta said they're going to build a $200 billion data center
Yeah.
with about 6 gigawatts,
Right.
right?
Right.
It'll take them some number of years, but they're already talking about something that's 6 times bigger than what the Memphis, the XAI factory, AI data center is going to be at the end of this year, right? So they're talking about that. Stargate, where they get all the money together, that's OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank. Again, at 10 gigawatts is other people talking about 10 gigawatts, right? And then people think, well, yeah, that's it. It could take a few years. It could be big. One, I think it'll happen faster than people think,
Mm.
right? And also the expansion of xAI and Tesla AI data centers to multi-million chips is also a thing happening. There's some issues around scaling of like a TSMC. There's how many of the top leading, the best wafers, and there's an hour video I can discuss about the challenges around doing that, right? But the $1 trillion per year will motivate them to focus up
I
and
see.
figure out how to solve those problems. Okay. I'm confident that the literal river of
Find a
money,
way.
right, they will find the way. Just like if you go back 60 years ago to, okay, you have the Intel 4004, the first integrated circuit with transistor chip. Yeah. And you had um, Moore, the technologists who said, "Hey, Moore's law, they think are
Right.
doubling every whatever
Right.
stuff, right?" Did they think, "Hey, it's going to hold for 40 to 60 years?" Did they say this that toward the end of it, we're going to be making $20 billion chip fabs and blah blah blah, right? No, they didn't
Right.
know that. Hey, we're going to shove out millions of wafers. It's like, okay, that'd be great if it happened. They didn't know that was going to happen,
No. No.
but they did scale. They knew, hey, we're going to make one that's 10 times bigger
Right.
in like a year, right? So just now we say, okay, we know, okay, I didn't think we'd make a million chip thing, but hey, it turns out we are going to make one this year. We're at 30,000 last year. It's big money, and then we're putting in these $200 billion, $500 billion plans, right? And so I think the so there's a Pascal's wager. So the mathematician called Pascal, did some interesting stuff in geometry and other things. He also had the thing of like, why do you have to believe in God, as a thing, right? So he
Yes.
said that. So the wager was that if you don't believe in God and then you're wrong, then you're not going to heaven. You're going to the other place, right? So then it's better to you
Believe
know
because
believe,
yeah.
because you know you don't. If it turns out not to be the case, what did you lose, right?
Right. Right.
The AI version of that is clearly CEO of Microsoft and Sam Altman and Zuckerberg and Elon all believe in AI God,
Right.
the super intelligent AI. They believe in that, right?
Right.
And they're willing to make these $200 billion, $1 trillion bets on that, right? Why? One, they're throwing off $1 trillion collectively anyway of extra cash. So they got the cash to go,
Mhm.
right? And then two is if they're right, their best bet to participate in $100 trillion or whatever, right?
Right.
So the upside is they must bet. If
Right.
they bet and they're wrong, it's not as good, it's whatever stuff, then they could still recover some of the money, right?
Yeah.
Because the computers, the other things have use, right? One, they are making some money on it. 13 billion
Right.
is not as
Right.
much as they
Right.
expect.
Right.
So during the 2000s, the dot-com bust, where
Mhm.
they spent up all this money, and then there was a gap. They overbuilt on networking and fiber and stuff. So you didn't use that up for 8 years. You still ended up using it. It just took you 8 years to get
Right.
there.
Right. Right.
So this is the same thing. Okay, we overbuilt. I'll save some money with spending some less year, next year's, next 5 years, and I'll, have to amortize, have to write some stuff off. I will be okay. They're still making a crap ton of money, right? So the downside is not so bad. So they're going to go all in because they
Well,
did it before. They're going to do it again. And so, and then if the super intelligent thing is right, because they're seeing the scaling laws, which is like I do this much compute,
right. Right.
and then I get this much more intelligence, more performance.
Right.
They're seeing it. All the metrics are going to like 99% of a PhD and blah blah blah. So they're seeing the results. We see it when
Right.
we use
Oh yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
other thing. We see that's good. It's still imperfect, right? But it is like
It's useful, but it is useful.
it's useful. It's 5 times better than it was
Right.
last year and stuff like that. So we see that it's worth it. So not worth it, but it's getting better.
Right.
When they run the training, the people get alerts of like, I'm seeing it doing its stuff, and I'm monitoring some things where if that stopped going upwards, that would mean the training run's gone bad,
Yeah.
right? So within seconds, key people are saying, hey, we got to stop the run, or we have to watch it to see if it gets itself out of the stuck mode, right? So if okay, you have to reset, right? So they're monitoring the benefits of it
Sure. Sure.
second by second,
Right. Right.
right? So thus, I'm confident we're going to get to superintelligence. There's some stuff about what does superintelligence mean?
Must mean
What is the
that's
domain?
another hour. Yeah.
That's another hour, right? Yeah.
Brian, you've done it. You've done it, man.
Yeah.
What you've done tonight is you have the record. This will be the longest Randy Kirk podcast ever.
Okay.
And for those of you who've hung in here, you're smarter for it.
Yeah.
You didn't know that the best was going to be at the end. So tell your friends if they chickened out early, they should go back and watch the end. Brian, as always, delightful to have you on board,
Thank
and
you.
we'll do it again probably in the weekend, but certainly next Wednesday.
Okay. Sounds
All
good.
right, and to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.